So yes, good evening. It is 13 minutes past 8 on the 1st of August, and today, I've mentioned this a lot in my videos lately, it is actually my birthday, and this is a slightly different video. Obviously, normally, as you'll see by the channel name, or if you watched some of my videos before, this is normally like a fragrance channel, and normally it would be, but I've got no script in front of me here, and I'm not actually talking about fragrances today. Now, obviously, being my birthday, being a milestone birthday, being my 30th, I've seen quite a lot of photos. My nan loves bringing around photos of when I was younger, and it's sometimes nice to see those pictures when you're a child and how you've grown up and how similar or different you look to when you get to a milestone age. So my 30th today, but it's a photos that I was looking at on my phone from maybe a couple of years ago when it was my birthday, and you'll see a few pictures now from the ones I found in my phone essentially, and probably the first thing you'll detect from that is how thin I look. Yes, very, very thin, a little bit pale in the face. And if you see some of my early videos on this channel and you hear me talk, I'm very, very monotone. There's no real, what's the word, oomph to my voice. It just sounds like I'm a zombie, like I'm sleepwalking into, yeah, just no oomph to me, just tired essentially. And really what this video is about is kind of touching on mental health. Now, I think everyone will have episodes of mental health challenges through their lifetime because let's be honest, there's always challenges. There's always things that are going to cause elements of stress and you're going to have to deal with that can be quite challenging. And that's why I wanted to make this video today as well. So if there's just one person that watches this one and maybe has a similar issues with mental health that I did, or even if they're just going through their own personal struggles now, or maybe they've come out of them and they just want to feel good, to just sort of remember and sit back and reflect on how far they've come. That's what I'm trying to make with this video. I want to tell you my story in a bit more depth for some of you that maybe have heard some of it on my channel before, but also as well, again, for anyone that just stumbles across this by a random thing, and yeah, what helped me and what I found most important to get over those things. Obviously, I'm sort of doing this video today as a positive thing, that obviously I'm celebrating my birthday today, and I look back at some of those photos from only a couple of years ago and think, wow, I've come a long way in a good way, and I'm very, very happy about that. But let's go back a little bit before 2 years ago. I'm actually going to go back to 2011, yes. So when I was kind of 15, 16, year 10, year 11 at school, essentially getting ready to transition to college, university, and sort of adult life, essentially. Now, the reason I go back there, and this is going to seem really strange, but where did my sort of issues with mental health first come? Actually was from an eye test. Yes, an eye test. As you can see, I've got glasses on. My eyesight hasn't been good for a long, long time. I think I started wearing glasses in year 8. Anyway, didn't really need them so much then, didn't want to wear them then. Now I just feel like I look strange without wearing them, to be honest with you. But at that time, anyway, I went to the opticians. I had to essentially get some new glasses. Now, the guy who did my opticians, he didn't really have any previous prescription from me. So what he did is he put loads of different lenses in my eyes, blah, blah, blah. Come out, eye test, absolutely fine. Obviously need glasses, have a little look, pick some ones, get all the sort of testing done before you leave the shop. Anyway, about sort of 3, 4 minutes after the eye test, suddenly noticed my vision was getting very, very blurry, and I had this high-pitched noise in my ears, and I felt really dizzy, really faint. Now, I've never fainted, never had any of those situations before. I was saying to my mum, I'm really not right here, I don't feel well. I remember they got me to sort of move from one chair to the other because I had to go and look at something in a mirror, and I just couldn't see anything. I couldn't walk straight. And just as I was leaving, I remember opening the door, and yeah, next thing you know, I was being dragged back in the shop because I'd fainted. And I think what had caused it essentially was just the different strength of lenses in my eyes. Now, again, absolutely fine, felt fine after I fainted. Obviously, we just went back home. Things went on normal. A few weeks later, I started then to obviously worry about that feeling again. If I start to hear like a high pitched noise in my ear, or if my head felt a little bit stuffy, a bit lightheaded, I'd be worrying I'm going to faint. So what was happening then is I was kind of finding ways to get out of certain situations. So I used to play a lot of darts. Essentially what would happen is I'd rush off, go to the toilet, somewhere just to get away from that stressful situation for a second, and then come back in the room. I'd get a lot of hot flushes. If we used to go out for a meal, I couldn't sit still for a bit. I'd have to get out there. Almost a bit claustrophobic if you're near a wall. I felt like I couldn't get away. I was trapped. So I'd always be sitting on the end of a table so I can always just get away. And that's when I started to realise, actually, I've got a bit of a problem here. I was always panicking about fainting, essentially, and becoming a bit scared about my health, essentially. I've got like obviously not going to show you, but essentially I've got a bone here in my chest that protrudes out a little bit. I was thinking, oh, is that something that's wrong with me? I'm panicking about everything, every single like freckle on my skin and whatever. And it's never good, first thing I would say with mental health, to look up and self-diagnose. Never, ever. If you think something's wrong, just go and get it checked out for peace of mind and get some professional help, not Dr. Google. essentially. But then one night I remember waking up, and at this time my nan wasn't very well at the time. I think she was in hospital with a stroke. I remember waking up with a panic attack. I didn't know what a panic attack was, never heard of it. I thought I was having a heart attack. Essentially, I felt my heart beat in my chest. I'd essentially like creased up. I couldn't even stand up straight. I was just panicking. My mum was like, just sit down, relax. And my dad was saying, look, you're just panicking. Go downstairs, put the TV on. Eventually, I calmed down. A few days later, I think it was probably only a few days later, woke up again, middle of the night, in a panic attack. So now I'm realising this is actually more of a mental health thing than maybe a physical health thing. Anxiety took over. Now, if you go back to 2011 sort of time, schools and stuff and mental health wasn't actually really a big thing at in that period. My mum paid for me to have hypnotherapy. Now, at the time, I actually did think it worked, I have to say. I thought the lady was brilliant. It did definitely make a difference because at the time I wasn't going to school. I had about 3 weeks off. And I remember my teacher said to me, just pulled me to one side and said, if you just need anything, just talk to me. And I remember the first couple of days, there was one day I went home. Then eventually I did manage to survive till lunch and then to the end of the day, and I felt good. But yeah, obviously the hypnotherapy was too expensive to carry on and continue. So yeah, eventually I was able just to cope. I wasn't really finding it easy, even when I went to sort of sixth form did me good. I had a really good friendship group. And then I went on to university, and that was quite stressful. You know, a lot of hot flushes, again, just sitting in classes, desperate to get out. I remember a story we went into because I did a sport course, we did an altitude chamber. I forgot we were doing it that day. And of course I'm thinking, wow, reduced oxygen here, I'm going to feel faint. I actually made up an excuse. This is a true story. I had a job interview suddenly out of nowhere. Why didn't you mention this at the start of the lesson? Just to go to the library and get out of the situation. I had to lie to people saying I'd gone to this certain job in a company that didn't even exist. That's how bad it was. Yeah, that's how bad it was because of this feelings of anxiety. Now, again, never had any other help, hypnotherapy, all that. University was only kind of 8 hours a week study. And then, of course, you'd study in the library and at home. So I wasn't in situations where it was so bad. I coped just about with that. And then it was obviously a case of leaving university and getting a job. And it took me ages, obviously, going to interviews, just feeling so hot and flustered and just too nervous to do well. Failed in many, many interviews to start with. They'd say you were very nice, but lack of experience, blah, blah, blah. All those things. For me, I just felt I was too nervous, couldn't look anyone in the eye, anything like that. And then eventually I got a job, and it was a job that was called Holiday Experience Team Member. Now, that was a vague thing. This was on a holiday park, as you tell, Holiday Experience. And it kind of read, if you read the job description, it just read like you would basically be like a person helping out around the park. Kind of was, but it was essentially a receptionist. Yes, you were sitting in an office. But this was the best thing that ever happened. Would I have applied for the job, first of all, if it just said receptionist? Absolutely not. At first, I wasn't very good. I was nervous about picking up the phone. I was nervous talking to customers. I think a few of the colleagues I worked with definitely picked up on that. And again, it wasn't that I didn't want to help. It's not that I was trying to be lazy or anything. Just pure anxiety and fear. And I remember one day where I thought the colleagues definitely mentioned how I'm not doing enough. And I did some overtime that day, and I just thought, I've come in for that. And I actually just said to myself, right, I'm going to prove everyone wrong. I'm going to answer every single phone call. I'm going to deal with every single customer that next time. And I did. And instantly, my confidence went up massively, and I just went from strength to strength. And people were asking me, Harry, how do you do this? How do you do that? Go to Harry because he's the best one. All these things. Lovely comments from customers or holiday guests, essentially, at the time as well. I thrived on it, honestly thrived on it. And by the end of the year, I got Employee of the Year at that park. So from 7 months in that job, I just went from strength to strength in my confidence. And the reason I got that award essentially was because of the development as me as a person, rather than necessarily my credentials for the job. So that was a huge thing. And for many years since then, 3-4 years, I was fine. Again, no issues with mental health, no anxiety issues. I'm a nervy person anyway, but that's just kind of my nature. I can't sit still, hence why I love my exercise and stuff. I love being on the go and moving. But then, I worked into schools then. Absolutely fine. Happiest period of my life, to be honest with you. I really, really enjoyed it. Didn't even feel like a job. Absolutely loved it. Made redundant in that job. Unfortunately, just one of those things. I needed to move on anyway. I don't think it was ever a bad thing. And then I went into a new job. Now, just before then, I'm going to say, while I was still working in a school, this is where the mental health issues kind of, or the main story about being thin today kind of started. I was kind of having a period where I'm a stress eater. So the more stressed I am, the more I eat. I'm not the other way where some people do restrict and lose weight. And what I was doing is where I was always wanted to enjoy something before work. I always like count down things. I've got this before this, before this. to enjoy. I kind of segment my days down. Now, I remember what I'd do is I'd have my breakfast, and then on the way to work, I'd eat a packet of biscuits. Now, I've had a massive breakfast, I'm not hungry, but it's that nice sugary thing I really, really enjoy eating, and it was like that other thing I can enjoy before I get to work. The problem was, I'm putting on weight, getting a bit of an upset stomach from it, to be honest with you, because it was just too much sugar, too much food. And my brother was then going to the gym, so he sort of had a few issues himself. He now signed up for the gym. He was losing weight, and he was actually thinner than me, and that was the first time that's ever happened. He was not that sort of person before. So this was when I thought, right, I need to cut down on food. Stopped having the biscuits in the morning. I felt a lot better, and I did lose a little bit of weight. I went down 8 pounds. I went from 9 stone 11 to about 9 stone 3, and I felt a lot better. This is where the problems then started. Restrict, 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 lose a bit more weight, lose a bit more weight. Oh, I'm now 9 stone, now I'm 8 stone 11. Amazing, light as I've ever been. Feeling really good, looking thinner. People are saying I'm looking thinner. Not over fat in the first place, but for me, that was like, okay, I must continue, I must do that. So I'm exercising more now, I'm eating less, and I'm feeling good. And then kind of things started to change a little bit. It obviously became more intense. I was starting to lose even more weight. And again, I was happy. There was no issues around not being happy. But that healthy thing of losing weight was becoming unhealthy, becoming that addiction, alongside the fact it is a hobby of mine, exercising, as you'd see from my channel. So, yeah, obviously, as I'll just go back to, I'll go fast forward again. It would have been, so I started working in school in 2022, 2024, it would have been, yeah, I left. So in the summer of 2024, very fortunate. I worked with some of the best, nicest people I've ever met in my life. Honestly, it's amazing. I've been so lucky with all the people I've met and worked with, to be honest. Managed to kind of get another job through people who knew other people, and it was like a dream job. It was like perfect. Obviously needed to move on. Got the perfect job. Now the problem and it is just one of those things. It was a startup role. I was essentially doing community projects, setting up community projects for children who maybe didn't get the same opportunities. Now, the problem with that and the industry of sport, if anyone knows people who are personal trainers or whatever, it's very irregular hours. So you can be potentially doing something at 8 in the morning, and you may not be doing anything in the middle of the day, 2 in the afternoon, and then doing something again at 6 in the evening, something like that. Now, this is where I'm thinking, obviously, for someone who's worked in a school, I'm used to the routine of you do 6-week block, you have your holidays, you have your weekends off, you know where you stand. Getting emails at late evenings and stuff, I can't switch off. I can't go, do you know what, I'm going to log off for tonight. I'm going to leave it. So I was constantly on alert. I've got this email at this time. I've got to do this at this time. And I'm starting to think, well, when am I going to, obviously trying to keep my weight down, even though I'm very, very thin at this stage. I'm now underweight anyway. When am I going to have time to do all these things I want to do and keep myself thinner and better and leaner and just even, just how slim can I get? Food was just becoming essentially fruit. So I'd be eating, and this may sound laughable, but if someone's got mental health issues, you'll know what I mean here. I was eating about, if you said if you 5 a day, 30 of my 5 a day, no exaggeration. Before 12 o'clock, I'd sometimes eat as many as 6 oranges, yes, 3 apples, 6 pears. I'd gone through days where I literally would be eating so much fruit. It was ridiculous. You would be shocked, and I honestly mean you would be shocked how much I could eat. People would say, right, you're not getting a stomachache doing that. Body seemed to adapt to it over time. And obviously I was getting thinner, but I was getting very stressed. So all these behaviours with this new job, not knowing where I stand because it's a start-up new job, just affected my whole behaviours. And I was trying to find ways and when I could do exercise, where I could do it. So I'd be getting up at 5 in the morning to exercise, do 2-3 hours walking, 2-3 hours running before I'd go to work. Try and find bits in between. Can I walk from one place to the other for my job, and having to leave so much earlier to make sure I get there on time? Ridiculous. I can drive, but I didn't want to because I'm getting a bit obsessed. And when you have things like watches that tell you steps and all that, again, when you've got these habits and bad behaviours, it's probably not good to use them. In fact, it wasn't good to use them because I'm becoming obsessed. I've done less than yesterday. Not been able to do the same amount of exercise. I'm getting irritable, stressed, slimmer, more tired, not sleeping. And then physical things were changing as a result of this. Now, obviously, my nails now are absolutely healthy, but something I noticed at the time, my nails were starting to curve. What's this dent? I thought, did I, crush my nail in a cabinet or something? Or, doing sport and stuff, did I, just forget? And then I realised, actually, that nail was starting to curve as well. And I'm starting to think, this is a bit weird, actually. Surely have a bruise. I also had a cut on my hand that wasn't healing either. And yeah, it was just other things I won't go into. But I was thinking, that doesn't seem quite right at the moment. Something's not quite working in my body. Now, obviously, the curved nails, I sort of Googled it. Again, not good to do, got Dr. Google, but it was an iron deficiency. And I think actually when I looked at the symptoms here, it probably was. I had freezing cold hands. People would be shocked when they shook my hands, how cold my hands were. Everything, my hair was dry, really, really dry. Another symptom of maybe low iron. So again, I was buying supplements to try and, rather than eat, to try and supplement my way out of these things so I didn't have the calories. And yeah, obviously, again, as you saw the pictures at the start, very, very thin. But I do want to kind of make a point here. I wasn't necessarily unhappy, and this is where people used to say to me, "You look like you've lost a lot of weight." And I was like, "No, I'm fine, absolutely fine." I knew deep down, of course, I knew what I was doing. I knew I was essentially starving myself, not eating properly, hiding food essentially because the food bill. I live in at home with my parents. Suddenly, a lot of fruits disappearing. They know I was eating it, but I didn't want to kind of emphasize just how much I was eating. So anyway, at this point, there's a few people have been a bit concerned. My nan was looking at my arm. I'm going to show you a picture now of how thin my arm is. At this stage, I had stopped weighing myself, which was a good thing, but I'm pretty certain I was under 8 stone. Now, for my height, for my age, for my build, I'm about 5'8", 5'9", so I'm not that tall. The sort of top of normal weight is about 8 stone 11. I'm about a stone lighter than that, so it's getting a concern. And obviously, this is because of also this job just wasn't working for me. I came into it probably at the wrong time when I had these issues, and I was just struggling to snap out of it because of the irregular schedule and how it was just not the same every day. It was 2 days could be so different. It just didn't work for me in essentially that lifestyle. So kind of when did it change? So this was, well, let's go into the next thing. I obviously started this channel to do an ultra marathon for charity. So part of that work, obviously doing community projects, I thought, why don't I do a fundraising thing, raise money for one of the charities I work with, and they can use the money to spend it on whatever they want, whether it's a sports thing that they can do or a day out, whatever. That was kind of what I thought. Now, the problem was, it got to about, I think I've had 80 days to go, essentially. I started doing these vlogs on about 110 days to go. And again, if you do see my early videos, you'll see what I mean. I'm far too thin. I'm far too thin. And there was a day where it just came to a head. I just thought, I can't do this anymore. It was a long, long day. I knew it was going to be really tough. I hadn't been very well, and I was not really fitting in. I felt like I wasn't obviously disliked or anything in the team, but I just didn't feel like I was there. I was in face my own battles in myself. It just wasn't Harry. It was like a ghost. I just feeling this extra workload wasn't doing me any good. And I remember just coming back actually after a day saying, I can't do this anymore. I got to I came home for lunch essentially, and my mum said, "You look awful. You absolutely look awful." The reason that kind of triggered that was I did a video where I'd had a cold shower because I heard about cold showers being good, and I saw my back in it, and I could almost see every vertebrae in my spine. Again, this is all because of how much weight I've lost, and I just was like, wow, I feel absolutely awful. And the problem was I didn't want to give up what I was doing because it made me think the first kind of real step up in a job that I've done, I'm not strong enough to cope with it, and I just didn't want to feel like that. But it just got to the point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. My brother had been saying this to me for ages. You need to get out. You need to do something else. I just didn't want to tell my manager, who had always been very good with me, very kind, obviously gave me this opportunity. I just didn't want to go back and say to someone, I've got all these issues. I can't cope. I need to get out of here. Eventually, I just sent her a message saying I'm going to have to go. And then obviously I had a chat. I feel so embarrassed to go in there and just say I'm absolutely burnt out and knackered. Just not me. I'm just not that person. I'll always just say, yeah, I'm fine, even if I'm not, essentially. But obviously at that time, I really had to just say, I've got to do something else. Kind of left, obviously, I wanted to continue doing this ultra challenge, which was my own individual thing at the side of work, but it was obviously a company or a charity I knew from my work. So I thought, I've got 80 days to kind of get myself, or 70 odd days to get myself a little bit heavier, a bit healthier. It was amazing just to eat a dairy milk caramel was what I had that night. And I felt so guilty. I hadn't eaten a dairy milk caramel for years. I thought, oh, I feel really bad that I'm eating this. I'm eating biscuits and all these things that now I eat again absolutely fine. I eat too many of them probably now. But obviously at this stage, it was like, I've got to snap out of that unless I have to get help. And I didn't want to get help. I wanted to say I can get out of this first myself. My brother had recommended Huels, which probably, again, you've seen some of my videos. I drink quite a lot of them. Again, it has a lot of nutrients like 26 vitamins and minerals. Look, it's not the healthiest way of getting it, but it's the most convenient way of getting it at times, rather than eating a load of fruit. So obviously did that, and over a few days I thought, wow, I feel a little bit better. A few weeks went by, I feel a little bit better, and then there was one day I was walking to the gym, I believe. Yes, I was walking to the gym and I was listening to music. I always got my headphones in, and I got to kind of this part that I walked through, and for the first time, this is going to sound really weird, but I could feel my legs. Now, for a few weeks, I've always enjoyed my walking. Me and my brother used to go for a walk, but it was kind of going to the point where we'd obviously be walking side by side. But where I was so worn out, so tired, he was walking here and I was back here on a lot of the walks because I just couldn't keep up with him because I was so worn out. And honestly, I then realised I could actually feel, this is going to sound strange, but the muscles in my leg again. It was like, because I started to have to, when I sort of said I'm going to leave and I'm going to do something new, I started to lift some weights again, get myself stronger. And I actually welled up. I actually was crying almost with emotion because for the first time in ages, I actually felt like I had something, a bit of energy and a bit of tone in my voice, and all these concerns that people had had around me, which I wouldn't tell them. I think this is the first time I've actually ever really mentioned it in enough detail. That I actually was starting to feel like Harry again. I could lift tables. There was a situation where I was leading a birthday party and you had to lift like a table which, you just had to pull the legs, but I couldn't lift it. I was too weak to lift it. To put it in perspective, we have a bicep curl machine at the gym. At the moment, I'm lifting 27 kg for two, for both arms. At the time, I couldn't lift 9, so 4.5 kilograms of weight. I couldn't lift. That's not good enough. That's not right. It's not right. It's too weak. And I even had children when I was at school. When I'd got thin, I remember a boy falling down the stairs saying he didn't want me to help him up because I was built like a 15-year-old. People were noticing how thin I'd become. Also how veiny I'd become because there was just no foul meat at all. So again, over time, obviously even at the end of when I did the ultra marathon, I was still quite thin in the face, but I was on the right path and I managed to complete it. So that, for me, was the biggest challenge, to complete that 100 kilometres, 62 miles in a day, with all this stuff that had been going on in the background 80 days before, where I could have had a medical. I was waiting, essentially. The reason I was probably not telling anyone a lot of these issues was because I was waiting for a medical incident to happen to myself, where I could almost go, say I fainted on a run or something, but I had to say I've lost too much weight, and this is the thing, because I just didn't want to tell anyone about these problems. I had to get my mum to pick me up once, actually. I must mention this again. A few months before, I obviously said I need to stop doing this because I was dizzy on a walk. I had no sugar in me, I had no food. Eating a banana, it didn't do anything. My mum had to pick me up because I had the shakes, and I just couldn't drive home because I was just going to have I had a hypo, essentially. So I was just waiting for something to happen, and before then I could say to someone, yeah, I have a problem, rather than just saying, I have a problem. Everyone's always been very good with me, and it was like, why am I hiding this? But who knows? It's like, again, why don't I snap at this? Why didn't I? But tell that to a smoker. Smokers know smoking's bad for you. People who drink too much alcohol, they know that's bad for you. It's very hard to break those habits and change, and that's how I found it. But obviously over time, eating more, enjoying myself more, people saying, actually, you look a lot better. A bit more colour in your face, all these little things. And even, like I said, when I look back, and the reason I started this video today is when I look back to even August, September last year, about a year ago, obviously I've broken out of the habits a bit. Still, it took a long time to get from being underweight back to what I call a normal weight and actually just feel like myself again, like that person. And again, all it started from the first time I had mental health issues, feeling dizzy and faint, whatever, from fainting in an optician's. That started panic attacks. Second time round was purely just because I wanted to be slimmer than my brother. How ridiculous does that sound? But those small things can affect you, and I was aware of it. But sometimes it's hard to break out of it, and also to kind of believe the problem is maybe as big as it was, but it certainly was. And then again, that's the reason I've kind of got through this one today. If anyone else, my dissertation, just to put it in perspective, at university was eating disorders in men and it being a growing trend. And then obviously 10 years later, essentially, or 7-8 years later, I had one myself. Simple as, am I still perfect with it at times? No. Do I still over exercise? Yes. But do I seem a lot healthier and a lot happier? Yes, I do. Am I aware sometimes that it's too much, it's too excessive? Yes, I am. Can I stop myself now, which I couldn't before? Yes, I can. Look, today on my birthday, I've gone for a run, I've gone to the gym. Some people would say that's probably excessive. Have I done it to excess compared to what I used to do? No, I haven't. Have I eaten carrot cake and biscuits and stuff today? Yes, I have. Am I ultimately a lot happier now? Yes, I am. And sometimes it's about just being honest with yourself, first of all, because only you can change these things if you want to. Speak to people. Honestly, I've been so lucky. Everyone's always been supportive and nice to me in whatever job and whatever I've done. And my new job, honestly, something I never expected I would do, because I had to break out of what I was used to doing before. Honestly, met some of the best people, nice people I've ever met. And while maybe I'm not as good at this job, I'm certainly not as good at this job. I'm certainly not perfect at it now. Everyone's so supportive, and I feel like I can always ask for help if I need to. And that brings out that confidence in me and that general feeling of being better. I've got my routine back, all those things as well. So you've got to find what works for you, and sometimes just push yourself out of your comfort zone to get to that point. Because I had to have some horrible, hard conversations, and yeah, I'm so glad I did. And that's what I'm saying. If anyone is struggling with like an eating disorder or anything, you're going to have guilt the first time you eat something you don't think is healthy or whatever. But being super healthy, overly healthy, is ultimately unhealthy, and that's what I found with that. And yeah, just don't be afraid to ask for help. And if you've just got to try and find it, whether that's professional help or just family, take every day to come. What can I do today to put myself in a better position from yesterday? The question I always ask myself actually at the end of the day is, have I done everything today that I wanted to do? And I always, if I can go to bed and say, yes, I have, I'm absolutely happy with that. And that's how I kind of look at it. I don't try and look too far ahead now, because I think you panic about all those things. I treat every day almost as a birthday. Essentially, it's my birthday technically today, but because I do the things I want to do now and look after myself a bit better, I make sure whenever I find that time within the routine, being sensible, I feel like I'm a lot happier now, because I can still do those things and do it in a way that's more enjoyable. Does that mean that I'm always going to have good days? No, it doesn't. Do I expect them to be? No. But because I've been through all these things, do I feel like I'm actually can cope with things a lot better? Yes, I do. I think I talk a lot better to people now. I'm a lot more confident because of some of those experiences. Because if I'm being honest, I've been a little bit too protective. I've had it too easy over the years. My mum's always done far too much for me, and I've just kind of accepted it for what it is. But getting out your comfort zone is one of the biggest things that I think helps your mental health. Whether that was the first time getting a different job, or this time doing something completely different and just breaking out of that cycle of having to be super healthy. Yeah, it's not always a good thing to be like that. So yeah, I hope that's kind of my story essentially. I think, again, I've always sort of said to people, I haven't been completely honest, even when people said, oh, everything okay or whatever, or I've kind of made an excuse of why I was losing weight or whatever. This has kind of put it in perspective of what I was actually going through at the time. Waking up in the middle of the night with stomach cramps because I hadn't eaten enough. All these things. There's so many things that honestly are ridiculous when I actually think back at how mad that is. So if you are someone who has eating disorders and struggles with that at times, I completely get it. Even if it's excessive exercise, probably even more so in my case, I completely get it. But yeah, just be honest. If you watch this and you do have that, or you do struggle with mental health, always ask for help. And I said, don't be afraid to push yourself out of your comfort zone, because sometimes those difficult things you do are the most important things in the end. So yeah, slightly different video there today, but I think, to be honest with you, I'm doing this because of a happy reason. I don't think I'm a crazy person or anything like that. I think I just went through a bit of a blip essentially, and obviously looking back now at the photos today on my 30th birthday, I think, wow, I look a lot healthier, a lot happier. And do you know what the best thing is? Other people have mentioned it to me as well, and I think that's the biggest confidence boost I can have. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this one today. I hope that's, yeah, I don't know, but I thought I'd just waffle on about it anyway. And yeah, thank you to everyone who sent me some birthday wishes as well, which was very nice. I received a lot today actually, so I've been very much spoiled. And yeah, I've got plenty more for those that do watch my friends' videos. Plenty more reviews to do. Tomorrow's video I am going to be doing. Well, actually, it won't be tomorrow's video when you see this, because I'm going to upload this one earlier. But I need to do another fragrance from Paul Spore. Smells very much like a very well-known fragrance. So I'm going to wear that one on my walk tonight. And yeah, hopefully you'll be there to join me for that video as well. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.